So, all due to respect. All due to respect as competition, tough. Tough competition, ladies and gentlemen, tough competition. But when it comes to the history of all of the greatest fighters of all time, guys, it's really hard to talk about Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie. Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie, Bellator 149, is the last time that these two would face each other in the ring. Now, guys, I've seen this about several years ago, which was, I look back at it, it's really hilarious. So Royce Gracie is out of the MMA. He did went to Japan in 2000 in a Pride Grand Prix 2000 opening. Had an interesting win, going to a finals against Kazushi Sakuraba, which after 6 full rounds of 15 minutes against 2 of them, the match ended due to corner stoppages or doctored by Gracie, and he lost due to modified rules of unlimited rounds with no referee stoppages at the time, which was several months later, and Kazushi became the first to defeat Gracie. And Gracie scored another draw 3 years later in Japan, and another fight in Shockwave Pride and K1 Premium, where he got another fight by submission win against someone, and then had a 2-round draw fight the next year against Hideo Tokoro, only to come 6 months later on UFC 60 in May of 2006, and Matt Huggs defeated him by TKO punches at 4 minutes and 39 seconds. It was a catchweight 175 bout, and seeing Royce Gracie lose that fight, that was the end of his career there. He did come back playing in Dynamite USA in June of 2007 to go 3 rounds by decision for a catchweight 188 bout where Gracie tested positive for anabolic steroids after the match, where the judge's decision was not overturned, but Gracie still won the fight against Kazushi Sakuraba for a rematch. So take that for what you will. So he's been out of the box world since, and that was the last time you would see him. Ken Shamrock, on the other hand, well, to be honest, he managed to pull on victories and such, but I am going to skip away from everything because he would be in another couple years left for UFC when he left in Ultimate Champion in 1996. And December the 7th, 1996 would be his last fight. So he would disappear a year and a half later, due to respect. But I won't get into his other fights in the future in UFC yet until I get to them. So, oh yeah, and by the way, guys, Ultimate 1995 and Ultimate 1996 and other non-divisions that don't involve UFC numbers, I'm not going to review them. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, Shamrock also went to May the 1st of 2000 in the Grand Prix finals as well that same night with Gracie's first loss. And Shamrock defeated Alexander Otsuka for the Pride Grand Prix finals super fight. And he lost against Kazuyuki Fujita in August the 27th, one day after my 2nd birthday. And pretty much Shamrock did manage to get on fights until then, but by 2001, with another win or so for the WMMAA heavyweight champion, he lost against Don Fry in Pride 19. Went in 2002. Several months he went back in UFC 40 to take on Tito Ortiz for UFC light heavyweight champion. And even though they went on in a 3-round fight, but after the end of 3 rounds, former corner stoppage stopped Shamrock from entering the ring. He did fought against Kimo Leopoldo in UFC 48, which was pretty good, and won the fight by a KO to the knee. But went to Ultimate Fighters or so by 2005 and went back to Pride in 2005 with another loss. The loss here, Kazushi Sakuraba, Rich Franklin, and then Tito Ortiz in 2006. He had both fights in UFC 61 and Ortiz and Shamrock 2 that same year, and both lost by horrific TKOs. Everything else by that, he took a break in 2008 and 2006, lost a fight again in Cage Rage 25 in 2008. Year later, he did manage to get another win on himself. 2010, he had 3 fights where he lost against Pedro Rizzo in Impact FC 2. And by the way, even though Ken Shamrock won a fight in 2009 in the War Gods Valentine's Eve massacre against Ross Clifton, that fight also had problem where it stated that Shamrock tested positive for steroids after the fight, but they let the win stand. So, hey, look at that. 2 guys that had steroids and got away with it. So yeah, pretty much Shamrock did had another win or so in October, and a month later he lost against Mike Bark in a KOTC Platinum event in South Africa. He did come back after a long hiatus in June of 2015 in Bellator 138, where he lost by TKO in 2 minutes in the first round against Kimbo Slice. But then in February 19, 2016, both of the return of light heavyweight supremacy, Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock 28, 16-2 versus Royce Gracie 14, 2-3. That's the record. So technically, you can write it off saying that Gracie had a great resume there. And you can say whatever. So there was an event that had horrible quality footage by a person named Big O Gleek that might have recorded his video on a camera, recording it on computer, showing video of a woman yelling to the screen, and there was a Titantron that showed lions and tigers and such, and it showed Ken Shamrock entering the ring. His body and the way he has been into the ring, well, it is interesting. He does manage to take off his shirt, and there's a few ring card girls looking at him. They also have a card that shows him where submitted opponents win 23 career submissions in his career, which is, well, you can say that's accurate, depending if you want to say accurate or not. They also had Start Fast, Be the Bully, which was Ken Shamrock's way of winning victories. But mostly after I just hope these friggin' ads online don't give me a hard time, Shamrock wasn't much in his prime. It's been over 20 years since their UFC fights. And in Gracie, he's almost 50 years old at this time, too. Like, he left UFC 5 when he was still almost in his late 20s. So, pretty much. Another Tron shows a person talking in the screen and a bunch of kids talking and such, and which were a bunch of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kids and such. And coming out of the ring, Royce Gracie, the bald-headed dude, comes out walking in his amazement, like all his great gear. I will say, though, even though he's not in the prime, he's been out of the ring for over 9 years. And then he takes off his white karate uniform and has a gray shirt on with the title of Royce Gracie. And then it cuts to a camera showing the ring card girls smiling and just seeing this person taking off his pants, which is ridiculous. But he was wearing, like MMA gear, like the shorts, the trunks and such. He takes off the gray shirt. And it states that his key to victory mostly is get to the fight to the ground and make it a long fight. And the thing is, guys, even when I watched some of the MMA fights he had in Japan in the 2000s, those are hard things to look at when you see that. I just don't see that as a good case. But yeah, the tail of the tape shows Gracie's 49 years old. Ken Shamrock is 52. And with their records of 6 foot and mostly 6'1" and 109-pound Gracie, 201 Shamrock. Shamrock is a reach of a 71 reach advantage, while Gracie is a 76.5. So due to their age differences, and like I said before, Gracie is almost in his 50s, and he did left UFC 20 years ago when he was in his late 20s, but still, he was in the pride there. So, yet again, I wouldn't really say there was much to this. They announced on the fighters with Michael C. Williams being the announcer of the fight. They put out every single information. They showed notable wins of Gracie's wins against Kazuki Shibaro, Dan Severn, Kimo Apado, and Ken Shamrock wins, which was his best wins. And to be honest, they were great wins. Ken Shamrock's best wins they do show are, well, technically I'm going to try to get to those notable wins some other time, except Kimo Lapardo or Patrick Smith, Murray Smith, and, well, there's a few other fighters. I'll save them for later. But technically, it was about to get a little bit crazier by the minute as time goes on. So by main event standards, whether if you like to call this a main event or so on, even if it is or isn't, because for the fun of it, and even though Bellator 149 titled this as Shamrock versus Gracie 3, and by the way, the drawing in average was a 2.0 million viewer numbers at the time on Primetime and Spike TV. Guys, I hate that Spike TV is gone. Man, guys, how many people liked watching MXC, Most Extreme Painful Eliminations? Or even when WWE used to be on Spike, when they brought back to USA Network. Like, I miss those good old times, guys. How many people miss Spike TV? Damn. Also, 14,209 attendants were there with a total gate of $1,388,951 of money right into the money. So, pretty much. Anyway, so the fight starts out different where both guys are stunning each other. And at this moment, when I watch this fight, because it's been like probably 8 years or so, because I think I saw this fight by late 2016 or early of 2017. So who knows? So both fighters are starting off strong, and at the first 30 seconds, Gracie throws a real high right kick that misses Shamrock. But when I saw Gracie even throw another left high kick, that was pretty scary to see. And I did not know Royce Gracie. At 49 years old, he really knew how to throw those kicks, and studying him and trying to scare Shamrock, because Shamrock was trying to be the offensive. He even goes for a huge spin kick, misses, and Gracie goes back for one as well. And after the first minute, I love that both of them were studying each other. Like, they're not going for the attack yet. And even though this is a 3-round fight with judges, so if they're going to last a fight for a long time, I think Gracie might win this fight. But I was questioning this because I think there was a lot of criticisms thinking of the second fight this fight was going to be similar to the second fight, just 15 minutes of boredom and both guys stunning each other or even hitting the ground, similar than a story about how Shamrock and Dan Severn was a boring fight, which I don't know if that's true, so I'm going to have to get to those videos later in the future. But yeah, pretty much. As they're stunning each other in the first minute and 30 seconds, there is a moment where the ring was covered in blood in the middle of the ring. So I think that night goes to show you there was blood everywhere in the ring next to the Bud Light and the Monster Energy signs and such. So there was a lot of blood in the ring that day. So it's crazy. And coming into the 2-minute mark, Shamrock is trying to scare off Gracie. And with even 2 minutes of the fight, they weren't going for takedowns, but like I said before, it's the first minute of the fight. But this is when the craziest moment comes, when Shamrock decides to cut the boredom and go for it. Gracie tries to go for a fake right kick, backs away, and Shamrock chases him, tries it, they go for a pull down, they're just clinching each other, knees, strikes, this or that, mostly knees to themselves, to the gut. And then the fight ends where Gracie goes for a perfect knee shot, and Shamrock is holding himself down, and then Gracie grabs him, takes him down, and Shamrock is feeling some painfulness. I think a gut kick or a low blow came, I don't know. But as Gracie takes him down, he throws some heavy stomps, pounds right into Ken, and the referee stops the fight at 2 minutes, 22 seconds. 2 minutes, 22. Yeah, 2:22. And that's how the fight ends. Yeah, to be honest, guys, this fight was a little bit longer than the 1 minute, than the 57. Their first fight was 57 seconds in UFC 1. Their second, 36 minutes and 6 seconds, or 36 minutes. This fight was 2 minutes and 22 seconds. And you know what? The fight ends. Gracie gets into it. The crowd are going bananas. I don't think none of the fans were expecting the fight to end that quickly. And I was pretty shocked that the fight ended that quickly than I expected, because I was expecting a boring fight. But I do feel bad that Shamrock and Gracie were old guys. And you know what? When you see a 52-year-old guy get taken down, get to the gut, and then gets pounds by Gracie in his Oh, it was scary. So they show us the replay, which did have a moment where it wasn't a kick to the gut or a knee to the gut. The grab shows that both of them were grabbing each other's hands. And as they're both grabbing their left hands, just gripping and putting their hands to the back of their head, their right hands. And then it shows the replay of Gracie going for a right knee right into the equilibrium of Shamrock. And that's what got him hurt. And Shamrock was hugging himself. So from the angle, I actually thought it was a gut kick or a gut to the knee. It was a huge equilibrium, which I didn't know that until the replay of the fight. Showed the replay of the bunch of Donkey Kong smash pounds, and that was it. So what do I have to say about this whole entire situation of Gracie versus Shamrock? Well, guys, after reviewing UFC 5, I can't really say much about this because there's other fights and other fighters I want to talk about in the future. And I think there was one moment I might have talked about the UFC 3 guy that goes by the name of Harold Howard. There is another couple other fights that he did be involved in, but I think there was one moment I am going to review, or maybe I did reviewed. But my point is, seeing that these fighters had a lot of history themselves in the 90s just goes to show you that they loved fighting. Unfortunately, guys, Gracie and Shamrock would never fight again. So by February the 19th, 2016, both of these guys had a great 20-year career in themselves. And even though Shamrock had a lot more history into himself, and not only that, guys, by 2016, Royce Gracie would be involved in the Class 2016 for International Sports Hall of Fame. Even 3 years ago when he was the World MMA Award for 2013 Lifetime Achievement Award. So Gracie pretty much there. And even though Gracie was in the inaugural inductee of the Pioneer Wing of the 2003 Class UFC Hall of Fame, Ken Shamrock would actually become that class the same year in 2003 as well. And in 2020, Ken Shamrock would be involved in the George Trangos Lou Fezos Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2020 for the Trangos Award. So, and also by 1994 and other stuff as well. But yet again, and even in 2023, the World MMA Awards for the Lifetime Achievement Award would go to Ken Shamrock 10 years later after Gracie. So, yeah, pretty much these guys have managed to put out achievements. And even the NWA Total Nonstop Action Impact also had Ken Shamrock as the Impact Hall of Fame in 2020, which is ridiculous. But you know what? He was the NWA WBA World Heavyweight Champion at one point, and then he was a WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion and a Tag Team Champion with the Big Boss Man back in 98 or so, during that time when the D-Generation X were mocking the corporation at the time, which was hilarious, before the Mankind and The Rock title on January the 4th. But yeah, so technically it just goes to show you that both of these guys still had great history in the 90s and a little bit in the 2000s. So seeing them come back in 2016, I did question that. It's just great that both of them left the ring with no one getting hurt at the end. Yes, I'm sure Shamrock's injury might have ended his career, but let's be honest, he should have left the ring. And even Dan Severn left the ring even a while back during the mid-2010s as well. So it just goes to show you how this sport is so dangerous when you have guys past their prime that can still do this for a living. Just like Oliver McCall.